Hello there, I'm Georgina Rose, part-time esoteric content creator and part-time Scarlet Woman, and welcome back to the Darling YouTube channel. In this video, it's going to be a little different. Rather than an Occult 101 video exploring a specific tradition, paradigm, or topic, I'm going to be giving general advice for new spiritual seekers. Currently, in the current time that I'm recording, this is a very trying time. There is the coronavirus going on, the elections just happened, and there's a lot of stress. There's really difficult transits astrologically, and it's just a hard time for everyone. And during these hard times, it's really important to turn inwards and turn to spirituality. Spirituality is something that can really help us get through hard times and develop as people and become the person we're meant to be. So I wanted to give a general video for all new occultists, whether you're a witch, a mystic, a Kabbalist, a Thelemite, or any variety of paths that can apply to you. So this is just going to be 10 pieces of advice on how to begin your journey into the occult, and hopefully it helps. My first piece of advice is going to be to research multiple paths. When people enter the occult, we tend to go for what's the most popular first. That's why you see a lot of people beginning their path with Wicca. Wicca is an amazing paradigm, but there's so much more than that. Also, you see witchcraft being sort of the default tradition for new practitioners. There's so much more than witchcraft. There is Catholic folk magic, there's Appalachian folk magic, there's Solomonic magic, there's Enochian. There are these many traditions. And so when you're new, while it can be extremely overwhelming, I would suggest researching a wide variety of paths and reading books from a wide variety of traditions and sources so that you can learn what really fits you. Because when you begin your practice, at least this is what happened to me. Here's a little story time. I began my practice wanting to get into traditional witchcraft and Appalachian folk magic. And it worked for a while, but it never really felt like me. Like, I liked what I was doing, but it never really clicked. And then I decided to widen my sort of broad search, and I discovered ceremonial magic and Thelema, and it changed my entire life. I became such a more evolved person and discovered a path that really meshed with me and fit my style. And so I think a really important thing to remember is that there's more than just the most popular traditions online. There's so much, and reading is so critical, and reading books, because as much as I'm trying to teach whole concepts in a YouTube video, it's pretty hard. The occult is so rich with information and concepts and traditions and paradigms that a YouTube video or podcast is only the beginning, though they are great ways to discover things that may interest you and then to springboard off that into deeper research. Number 2 is a piece of advice that you're gonna get in literally every paradigm and in every beginner 101 book you're ever gonna read. Develop a meditation discipline. Meditation is hard. Meditation is difficult to start, at least it was for me. Meditation can be frustrating. Meditation is something that takes time to master. It's not something that happens overnight, but it will help you so much when you do these rituals. Being able to meditate and ground yourself and control your mind is going to be so important when you decide to start affecting what is outside of your mind. Meditation also, even beyond the occult, is critical for mental health, and there have been a lot of really interesting psychological studies relating to it. I suggest when starting a meditation discipline to just start with 5 minutes a day. Just 5. I think you see online everywhere, like, to do 20 minutes a day, and that's great once you know how to meditate, but when you're beginning, it's really good to start small. Also, there are a lot of different ways to meditate, so if a certain style of meditation doesn't click with you, try something else, experiment, and eventually you'll find something that works for you. Number 3 is going to be to start a magical record or journal or grimoire or book of shadows. The exact terminology uses varies tradition, but basically what this is it's a notebook where you write down all your spells, your rituals, your meditations, your daily rituals, and just log what they are so you can have like a record of what you used to do and write down how they affect your life and the results and the synchronicities you get so that you can track your progress, and it prompts you to reflect on what you're doing and see how it's affecting you. Thelemic Union has an amazing video on the magical record that I will link below. Number 4, do your shadow work. Shadow work is a concept from Jungian psychology, and it's essentially like DIY therapy. It's turning inwards and looking into your subconscious and what your subconscious wants, what you're rejecting, what you're not paying attention to. And this is so important. When we go and we affect the macrocosm, or the outside world, or everything outside of us, it's important for us to have a grip on what is inside and our microcosm so we can effectively impact the macrocosm and make change. And shadow work is a great way to keep track of your feelings and your emotions, right? Let's say you're about to start prepping a spell. You're going to want to base that spell based on your current conditions. And how can you know your current conditions without reflecting inwards and thinking about what you want, what you need, what you're lacking, and all of that? Constant inner reflection is really important. Shadow work can be done. I do a lot of journal prompts, and in my monthly ritual guides that I do for my Patreon, I do give shadow work prompts that you can reflect on, but there are tons of prompts online. There are tarot spreads, and tarot is a good way to sort of jumpstart your shadow work journey. And a lot more. Also, Carl Jung's writings are really effective and helpful when learning these concepts because they're a little bit more psychological than magical, but something you'll realize as you go along your magical path is that the psychological and the magical have a little bit more of a blending and gray area than you would first think they are. While I am not a proponent of the mental model or psych model, I don't think it's all psychological. I do recognize that psychology plays a big part of it, and for a lot of people, they see magic in this very psychological way. My next tip is to start tarot. Learning divination as an occultist is critical. Divination is going to be your tool for helping you understand rituals, process rituals, learn about situations in your life, predict the future, and learn more about yourself. I suggest picking a divination method early on and sticking to it. As a personal preference, I think tarot is the best one to start with. Here's why. I'm not saying tarot is the best divination system or that it's the best because it's the most common, but because it is very transferable. Tarot, there's so many books about it and so many resources so you can read a lot about it, but also tarot contains correspondences to astrology, Kabbalah, numerology, and so much more. And by learning the tarot, you can actually learn these systems. Through learning the themes of the tarot, you can look at that and go, oh wait, this is a card that relates to Saturn, and then get more of a glimpse of Saturnine energy. As well, tarot is connected to the elements, and you can learn by the themes of each suit what various elemental correspondences mean, and that will jumpstart you with other traditions. Tarot, even if you don't use it as divination, I've seen people just use tarot as study cards to help them learn things like Kabbalah. They just use tarot to study and to analyze and to learn the correspondences from and move into other traditions through that. Tarot is just a great little like universal symbolic key for the occult traditions. My next tip is to learn basic astrology. You don't need to be a professional astrologer. Honestly, my astrology knowledge is not perfect, but learning basic astrology and basic correspondences are gonna really help you. When you start doing rituals and spell work, a thing you're gonna see come up a lot is this concept of ritual timing. And timing things based on the moon phases, based on the time of year, based on the transits, etc., etc., etc. And this timing stuff will make your rituals so much more strong and will make them like have much more of an impact and add a whole new layer of correspondence. To learn this timing stuff, a really important thing is just to learn basic astrology. Just learn what the planets mean, just learn what the moon phases mean, and just generally be checking what transits are happening. You don't need to check your chart every day. You don't need to read your entire natal chart. You just need to learn the basics so you can learn how to time things and how to know what's going on. Honestly, as silly as it is, even just getting on astrology Twitter and looking at what discussions are happening and just being on astrology Twitter for a year, you'll learn so much by just seeing the discussions. You don't need this like super intense understanding, just enough to time your workings, and with time it'll make more sense, and by sort of paying attention to the transits that are happening and sort of journaling throughout the year as the signs shift, you're gonna learn a lot about astrology just sort of automatically. But I do think putting a bit of an effort in to learn things like planetary days and hours are gonna really help you. My next tip is to start a daily discipline. Your daily discipline does not need to be a lot. It doesn't need to be complicated, it just needs to be one thing. That could be pulling a daily tarot card, meditating for 5 minutes, doing a ritual like the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. If you want to get into ceremonial magic, I really do suggest doing the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram once a day. It's a banishing ritual, and there are a lot of videos of people demonstrating it and explaining it, and I plan on making a video on it eventually. But yeah, like just one thing. You can do something super simple to something more complex, but I really suggest doing something sustainable, because when you start a daily ritual, you need to remember, I have to do this every day now. I have to do it when I'm feeling like shit. I have to do it when I don't want to get out of bed. I have to do it every single day and take that seriously. And so doing something small is really good, especially early on in your practice. You may see online in Discord groups these ceremonial magicians who do like 10 daily rituals a day and it takes them like an hour, and that's not a realistic place to start. While that may be something you admire or look up to or hope to be eventually, that's not where the average practitioner is starting, and you can't expect yourself to be up to that standard. Do something simple, Liber-resh. Yeah, just find something that works for you and your tradition and just build in that daily discipline, because it'll keep you thinking about your spirituality, it'll keep you focused, it'll keep you paying attention to your goals, and make sure you don't fall behind. Though, of course, for some people, daily disciplines are not their thing, and if that's gonna be you later on, I just suggest trying it and see how it feels and see how your life and results change by developing a daily discipline, at least for a little bit. It's a bit of a more practical one and less about things you do and more about things you have. When you're new to the practice, it's pretty common to see these really elaborate witch kits, or if you're reading through books by like Scott Cunningham, seeing these altar layouts, or going on social media and seeing people with all these tools and things they own and ritual garb and thinking that you need all of that right away. You don't. When you're new, only buy tools that you know how to use, right? Like, don't buy an athame if you're not sure what an athame is or does. Don't buy a chalice if you don't know what a chalice means. Don't buy a ritual robe if you don't do rituals. Buy things that are practical and as they come up in your journey. Additionally, there are a lot of ways to save. If you are getting into like herbal magic, for example, buy herbs from your grocery store. McCormick Spices is like a really good budget-friendly line in the US. Going to the garden center at like Home Depot or your local hardware store and like getting plants to grow them yourselves. That's a really good way to like connect to the plants themselves and let the kind of growing process connect to you magically. DIYing things, if you're someone who's crafty, making your own talismans and lamens is a really good idea rather than spending tons of money on Etsy in your local occult store. Also, like candles, you can get candles at your local discount store rather than going to your local witch shop, etc., etc., etc. Just buy things consciously and think about how you'll actually use them and if you're ready to use them, and just don't like buy a $500 witch kit to buy a $500 witch kit because that's what you think you need. You don't. Buy things as they're relevant and necessary in your journey. My next tip is to consciously balance your research and your practice. Something that I see happening to new practitioners a lot, and honestly happened to me, is becoming a bit of an armchair magician, which I did an entire episode of my podcast on, and doing a ton of reading but not actually practicing, or vice versa, practicing without studying. Trying to balance these is so critical. You don't want to be completely buried in research for like a year thinking you can't practice until you understand everything, or just practicing without knowing what you're doing. Balance is so critical, and paying attention, like, hey, I read 2 books, but I haven't done a spell yet. Maybe I should try something simple. Think about balance and think about how you can make a good equilibrium with these 2 important things, because they're both important, but they're both important, not just one over the other. My final tip, and one that is going to help you a lot, maybe even the most, at least for me earlier on, is to find community. During the coronavirus, obviously you can't go to like rituals at your local occult store, but there's so many amazing online communities. There are these great Discord servers where you can talk to other practitioners. There's Twitter communities, there's Instagrams, there's group chats, there's Facebook groups, and these communities allow you to bounce your ideas off of other practitioners. As well as when you're a new practitioner, especially if you're in a more rural or conservative area, it can feel really, really lonely. You can feel like the only occultist in the world, and that's not a good feeling. If you're someone who's deep in the broom closet and unable to talk to people you know about your spirituality, having these groups as an outlet can really help you process things better and grow as an occultist. As well as it's just really important to have people who you can bounce ideas off of and trust. I find that I've grown so much through these like online communities. Like Discord servers alone have taught me so much, and having and engaging in conversation and debate with other practitioners has expanded my mind and helped me learn things that I would have never known before, as well as shown me people from all these traditions that I would have never encountered otherwise. And that has really expanded my mind and helped me grow as a practitioner. So these are 10 like beginner tips for beginning your journey. It may be overwhelming and this may be a lot of information at once, but just know that you're on the right path, and spirituality is not a linear journey. You're not going to sit down one day and be a 10th degree Ipsimus, right? Like that stuff takes time, Most of these online people you see doing these rituals with these elaborate setups have been practicing for years. Years on years on years, and sometimes even decades. Just know that you are enough, and beginning this journey is hard, but you will one day be that person you're looking at on social media and envying for all the amazing ritual work they're doing. Just give it time and it will happen for you. So thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you're subscribed for 93 days, you will meet your holy guardian angel. You can find me hosting the Occultism with a Side of Salt podcast with another YouTuber named Warrior Witch Nike on Spotify and on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all under the name .darling, as well as I am on Patreon, and on Patreon I make custom herbal preparations, ritual guides, I do extra exclusive videos on more advanced topics, and run a Discord server. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.